Rotana Hotels Management is one of the leading hotel management companies in this region. Its president and CEO, Guy Hutchinson, is an international hotelier and a global citizen, and he joins us now. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, the international hospitality sector, especially the GCC and the UAE's hospitality sector, has recovered much more quickly from the COVID-19 pandemic than was anticipated. What is Rotana doing to ensure its continuation?
The pace of that recovery has just been fantastic, and I think this region very clearly is leading the global recovery across the tourism and travel industry. And Dubai, for example, year to date at the end of Q1 is the #1 performing hotel market in the world. And that's got a lot to do with the engagement of government and infrastructure around the industry as a whole. And we've seen that level of support and engagement in the UAE and Dubai and in Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, and right across the region really have an enormous impact in accelerating that growth, accelerating that recovery. So we have been and remain very engaged in those key stakeholder groups. So be it the tourism department or Department of Tourism and Economy in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, we're very, very focused on staying engaged with those leadership groups. They have a huge impact on what happens in the industry. We're also strengthening our teams, so we're strengthening our development teams, which are accelerating growth right across the region, and we're investing back in our people.
UAE hotels are expected to be among the top performers. What are you doing this year and in future to try to prepare for this kind of rush of demand?
That demand arrived. We already saw that real acceleration in pace in October of 2021 with the launch of Expo, which has just had a huge impact for our industry. It really came at a time where pent-up travel demand was at a peak. So we very quickly had to ramp up operations from that point. And it's been a blend of strengthening teams, refocusing on growth, but also reestablishing fundamentals. I mean, when you go so quickly from a period of pandemic into a period of high demand, you have to really focus on those fundamentals of quality and service and reinvest in teams to make sure that you are still delivering those global levels of service and quality that Dubai and the region is so famous for.
Sustainability is a top priority in the global and the regional hospitality sector. What is Rotana doing right now to make sure that its hotels are sustainable, and what are your future plans?
Sustainability has just become it's not even anymore a platform. It's now, it's such a fundamental part of how I believe and we believe businesses have to operate. It's no longer something that is a peripheral issue or something that is a press release. It has to really be part of your core operations. It has to be a fundamental in terms of how you operate. And I think Expo has had a very interesting impact for us. And the pandemic, combined with that, has had a very interesting impact on how a global event can actually create a sense of society and how it can accelerate issues like this. And sustainability has always been a very important part of what we do. Already, 5-6 years ago, we were eliminating single-use plastics, and even today, across all of our hotels, we've completely eliminated single-use plastics. So no disposables, no single-use amenities in guest rooms. We've introduced water bottling plants. It's one of my life's missions to remove the plastic bottle from a hotel. We've brought in local sustainable farming and local sustainable produce into our hotels in UAE where that's available, and we're investing in that community to accelerate that, to bring that locally farmed produce into our hotels. And it's really, we've always embraced it. It's a tremendously important part of how we operate and will operate going forward. And even now, in the design and construction standards for hotels, we're incorporating aspects into that design and construction to ensure that hotels are built in a sustainable fashion, because it's more than just what you do in the operation. It's how you build it and the environmental impact that buildings will have in the future. So across design and construction, across operations, across plastic use, farm conditions around how you employ colleagues, it's fundamental to how we operate.
So are other hotels taking this comprehensive stance towards sustainability as Rotana is?
To be honest, I think we're actually one of the more advanced groups in the region. I think, we were the first to actually physically, although there were press releases before us, but we were one of the first to actually eliminate single-use plastics from our buildings.
Now, Rotana has 68 properties across Africa, Asia, and Europe. What are your future expansion plans?
Growth is fundamental, and I think that's been one of the very encouraging signs coming out of the pandemic, is how quickly the development community has re-engaged with hospitality and re-engaged with building out hospitality assets. So we've seen a peak in activity and a lot of recovery through design, construction, investment, and hospitality-related projects. The UAE is home. It's always extremely important to us, and we're seeing new properties come up in Dubai and in Abu Dhabi. But equally, Egypt and Saudi Arabia have emerged as two very important markets for us. We're seeing an enormous amount of development activity in these two markets. And we've actually opened now development offices both in Cairo and in Riyadh to help fuel that growth. So we're seeing a lot of that. But we always have a little caveat around growth. We are very grounded as a company, and honestly, coming out of the pandemic, one of our first priorities before we look too much to growth has been about making our existing investment partners whole. We never take eye off the fact that there are a number, around those 70 trading properties, there are a number of investors who have just weathered a very, very difficult period. So we are always extremely focused on balancing that growth strategy, balancing that growth around making sure that we continue to deliver best-in-class returns for our existing investors.
Congratulations on all your great efforts, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.